European football is back, but with at least one glaring exception. The Bundesliga is close to finishing after returning in May. La Ligue got underway in mid-June, and both the Premier League and Serie A return this weekend, while a reconstructed Champions League was confirmed for August by UEFA this week. Ligue 1, however, was the only one of the traditional Big Five leagues to cancel its season after football was suspended in early March as the COVID-19 pandemic escalated. With the bickering between various parties descending into farce and Ligue 1's already diminished standing in European football continuing to slide, we're going to try and answer three big questions concerning the sporting aspect of this debate. Why was Ligue 1 cancelled? What happens next? And where does this leave French football? So, why did this happen? Embarrassingly, the answer seems to be that it was all a big misunderstanding. The debacle hinges on French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe's statement on April the 28th that big sporting affairs could not occur before September. The 2019-2020 football season cannot return, he said. This caught French football completely by surprise and now seems more than a little hasty. Just 4 days earlier, the LFP had unveiled plans for Ligue 1 and Ligue 2 clubs to return to training on May the 11th, with plans for games to resume in mid-June. Le Parisien reported that the LFP were looking to purchase 50,000 COVID-19 tests and were planning similar testing regimes to other major leagues, while surprised LFP CEO Didier Quillot later explained, "We were genuinely ready to finish the season like the Germans and the Spanish, but there were government decisions made which we respect." Some accepted the decision, like PSG President Nasser Al-Khelaifi, who told RMC, "We respect the French government's call." While Marseille coach Andre Villas-Boas told L'Équipe that the decision was totally logical, as it was too early to start training again. However, Toulouse were relegated as a result of the cancellation, and club president Olivier Sadran described the decision as unjust, unfair, and unfounded in law. An abuse of power, he said. While Amiens, also relegated as a result, later took out a full-page ad in L'Équipe on May 12th to protest the decision. On May 7th, Lyon president Jean-Michel Aulas told L'Équipe he had filed 2 lawsuits against the decision, one pertaining to the way in which the league was stopped and the way in which the final standings were calculated to see if they were legitimate, he said. The other saw Aulas demand to examine the possibility of returning to football because, he insisted, that the decision was based on a supposed UEFA deadline of the 3rd of August, which was not a hard deadline, as was thought by the government. Lyon, who were later joined by Toulouse and Amiens in posting a legal challenge, would miss out on European football for the first time this century as a result of the decision. And despite his critics saying that this was the real reason for Aulas' outrage, it seems he was correct. Le Parisien printed a letter to Aulas from UEFA President Alexander Ceferin that stated the 3rd of August date was indeed not an absolute deadline. Ceferin wrote it was explained in meetings between UEFA, country associations and clubs in April that these dates are only recommendations, provisional and not official. However, on May 5th, Minister for Sports Roxana Maracineau suggested to L'Équipe that the government assumed otherwise. "It was the proposition that I had in my office," she said. "The season had to be finished on the 3rd of August owing to dates imposed by UEFA." Maracineau contradictorily later told decisions were taken by the authorities in question, meaning the LFP. "It is not up to the sports ministry or the government to sort out the calendar, but to give the broad strokes." However, club presidents and the LFP still insist they are adhering to a government decision. Since then, consternation has grown. 6 French senators introduced an amendment to a piece of COVID-19 related legislation to bring about the return of Ligue 1 football. They were unsuccessful. Aulas wrote an open letter to the French government imploring them to allow for the 2019-2020 Ligue 1 season to be completed. Meanwhile, Lille president Gerard Lopez told L'Équipe that where we can all agree, and I'm talking about the presidents here, including those who have changed their mind recently, is on the hyper-premature stoppage of the league season. "We keep saying that we are failing to catch up with the Big Four in Europe and that we don't produce good results in European competitions. It is not by stopping our league before the others that we are going to put ourselves in a position of strength either. This is a catastrophic decision," he said. Bizarrely, the governmental position has also seemingly softened of late. Maracineau told newspaper Alsace that "my desire is to give us all an opportunity to put popular sport on with supporters in the stadiums, even if it means a limited number at first. Why not from the end of July, if at all possible?" Then, seemingly contradicting the tone of his earlier statement, on May 28th, Prime Minister Philippe announced professional sports people could return to training on June 2nd, as long as they observed strict health protocols. Although Le Parisien also reported it was supposedly President Emmanuel Macron that personally took the decision to end the season. On June 4th, Aulas, Amiens and Toulouse had their day in court, and while the National Court upheld the decision to end the season, the relegations of Toulouse and Amiens were deemed unlawful and thus suspended. So, what happens next? Is that it for the Ligue 1 season? Almost definitely yes. Having run out of options, Aulas's only recourse is to appeal the court's decision, but success is unlikely. After Lorient and Lens were promoted as a result of Ligue 2's cancellation, for a while it looked as if a 22-team Ligue 1 season was a possibility. However, the LFP board of directors voted unanimously against that this week. Amiens president reacted angrily to this on French radio. This has always been about them saying, he said, that things were simply not possible. There was no dialogue. They have not even really considered a 22-team Ligue 1 season. The LFP once again forces us to move towards a legal process. So some way to go there. Ligue 2 clubs had previously agreed a 22-team season as well, but the FFF, the French Federation, overruled them. Without the now defunct Coupe de la Ligue next season, there would be space for the extra league games to be played in the usual calendar, but how that calendar looks amid the ongoing COVID-19 crisis is uncertain. New domestic TV rights holder MediaPro are perhaps unsurprisingly in favour of a 22-team league, as it would mean 4 extra rounds of games and an extra fixture every weekend. Currently, MediaPro holds the rights to 8 games per round, and beIN Sports has 2 matches, which it sub-licenses to Canal+. Who shows the extra game? Does the LFP hold another auction for that final fixture? Do MediaPro get it? Who knows? As it stands, the LFP has agreed a return date of August the 23rd, but Ligue 1's European situation remains in flux, with both the Coupe de France final between PSG and Saint-Etienne and the last Coupe de la Ligue final between PSG and Lyon and their accompanying Europa League spots still in limbo. For now, Lille, Nice and Reims are set for the Europa League, but the plan, contradictorily, is to play both finals at some point, which could be huge for Lyon, as this is now the only realistic avenue back into European competition. Lyon and PSG are, of course, still in the Champions League, but this decision to end the league early disadvantages both clubs considerably when compared to their continental rivals, who will enjoy several warm-up games in their domestic leagues before the Champions League returns. Although German clubs will have at least a month's break between the end of their season and the start of the European games, PSG and Lyon will be close to 5 months without a competitive game. Friendly tournaments have been rumoured, but their feasibility remains uncertain given the ongoing pandemic. So, where does this leave Ligue 1 and French football? For a league that struggles to match the other big 4 leagues for credibility, this farcical situation reflects very poorly on French football. Given the export models that many clubs have adopted of late, and the relative smoothness with which the other big 5 leagues have resumed games, reinforces the idea that Ligue 1's place amongst the top 5 leagues is under threat. Damningly, only 22% of French people surveyed in a YouGov and SoFoot study who regularly watch football on TV before the COVID-19 outbreak actively miss it. Financially, the situation remains relatively manageable for most clubs, however, although some, like Saint-Etienne, are in a little bit of trouble. The cancellation of the league led to current TV rights holder Canal+ to terminate their deal, leaving a portion of its final instalment totaling €234 million unpaid. In order to mitigate that damage, the LFP took out a €223.4 million government loan, which is set to be redistributed to the aiding clubs throughout the summer and paid back over a period of 4 years. MediaPro's new deal equals the second biggest TV rights deal in Europe behind the Premier League, and Ligue 1 clubs will receive a 60% increase in broadcast revenue as a result, a detail which seems to have played a significant role in dispelling concerns over a shortened season, and may explain why many of the clubs unaffected by the early finish remain a little apathetic towards the situation in general, despite clubs like Lille, Nice and Rennes losing nearly €20 million as a result. So, thanks to a bizarre miscommunication, the Ligue 1 season is probably finally over. It's still around 2 months away. A lot can change in that time, but Liga looks set to return for the 2020-2021 campaign on August the 23rd, probably with fans after the French government announced that stadiums will reopen on the 11th of July to hold an initial maximum of 5,000 spectators, while Ligue reported that the LFP are pushing for full crowd capacity from the opening round of games. Fans or no fans, next season was initially billed as a watershed moment for the league, as it was hoped that Mediapro's mammoth new TV deal would allow Ligue to compete more closely with the rest of the top 5 leagues. But whether French domestic football can maintain its standing among the European elite now looks more uncertain than ever.